Staff will get started for today. So welcome to the March agenda briefing, and welcome to all our guests in the gallery there and anyone online. Disclaimer, so the agenda briefing sessions are used to inform councillors on the items of business to be presented and discussed at the forthcoming ordinary council meeting. These meetings are open to members of the public who may request to present a deputation to council relating to an item on the agenda. No decisions are made at these meetings, although councillors can request additional information or alternative wording to be provided to allow for motions to be prepared for consideration at the forthcoming ordinary council meeting. Any statement regarding any planning or development application made during an agenda briefing session is not to be taken as a notice of approval. Anyone who has an application lodged with the Shire must obtain and should only rely on written confirmation of the outcome of the application and any conditions attached to the decision made by council. An audio and visual record will be made by means of live streaming of these proceedings and uploaded to the Shire's YouTube page for viewing. Acknowledgement of country. The Shire of Harvey acknowledges the traditional custodians of the land and their continuing connection to land, waters and community. We pay our respects to all members of the Aboriginal communities for their cultures, and to elders past, present and emerging. Records of apology and leave of absence. I have not received any, but I note that Councillor Boyland and Councillor Carboni are absent. 3, declarations of members and officers' personal interest. I have a number that are up on the screen. Councillors, are there any other declarations of personal interest? Councillor Dickinson.
Sorry, yes, I have an impartiality. Sorry, I see it's already noted there, but I'm the council delegate for Sport and Recreation Plan, so I have an impartiality for that. And I'll deal with it and stay in chambers. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Dickinson. Are there any others, councillors? No. Okay, deputations, and we have a number of deputations today, councillors. So can I call upon Miss Megan Hicks to step forward in relation to item 5.1.2, which is the lease at Binningup Beach Christian Youth Camp Incorporated. So welcome, Megan.
Thank you. I thought I would take the opportunity just to come along to this meeting and introduce myself, because we obviously have lots of new members on the council, and you might not know who I am. So I'm one half of the team of managers that currently manages the Binningup Beach Christian Youth Camp. My husband is the person who does most of the hard work. I'm the support act. But I'm here tonight or this afternoon just to tell you a little bit about the camp and what has happened at the camp since we've taken over as volunteer managers there, and what some of our potential plans are for the future, so that you have an opportunity to understand how the camp works and ask any questions if you have any. So the first camp was actually held in January of 1955. So next year, the beginning of next year, will be our 70th anniversary. The land was originally donated by Mrs. Violet Jones of Harvey, and has been under the management of a committee for the last little while anyway. We took over in June of 2022. So we've in that financial year we had 1,204 guests stay at our campsite, a mixture of adults and children, and a total of 31 camps. That brings in roughly $24,000 in income to the camp. Over the next financial year, 2023 to the current day, we've had 1,059 guests stay and a total of 26 camps. And before the financial year finishes, we expect to see another 185 people visit our camp with, as part of 7 different groups. looking into the future, our bookings for the camp for the 2024 and 2020 for the 2024-25 financial year, we have 25 camps booked and confirmed, and we expect to see that number increase with people who find out about the camp as the year progresses. Over the last 2 years, roughly, we've made a number of improvements to the camp. We've had all the smoke alarms replaced. We have applied for and received funding from the Shire to replace our shed, which is currently being built. Hooray! We're very excited about that. We've also got some an undercover seating area that is going to greatly improve our outdoor amenities for the people who come and stay at the camp. We've completely replaced the hot water system, which can now cope very well with 80 plus guests. Before it was struggling to keep up, particularly in the winter time. We've completely replaced the decking at our top dormitory, which looks really good now. We had a carpenter come and do that for us. We've also replaced the reticulation, or parts of the reticulation system. We've installed heat extractors in the hall to make it a bit more bearable during the summer months, especially when 80 people are packed in there, it's quite hot. We've purchased a digital piano. We've replaced the entire set of laundry equipment to allow us to launder the sheets that we put on our mattresses when our guests come to stay. We've installed an outdoor shower, which has been very popular this summer with our guests who come straight from the beach. And this lets them shower off all the sand so that they don't clog up our very old septic system when they go and have a shower. For the future, we would like to see perhaps some AV equipment in our hall so that we can offer people some modern facilities. With regards, at the moment we have no AV equipment at all, and if people want to use it, they have to bring their own. We would really like to paint the outside of our dorms with a mural, or maybe perhaps the hall with a mural, so that the public who walk down Valentine Road to the beach can enjoy a beautiful outlook as they look over the camp. Also on the agenda for us perhaps is to replace our basketball half court, which is showing its age now. And as a big picture project, we would really like to build a second building on the side of our hall, our current hall, which would then act as a recreation building so that the hall can be reserved for dining, so that we can have separate dining and recreation areas, because at the moment that hall is used for both of those things. And in the very long-term future, we might have to look at replacing our ablutions or updating them, and also the dormitories, which are obviously almost 70 years old. But we've managed to keep everything going, and we look after it well, and we make sure that we have all the appropriate tradespeople and that sort of thing come out to the camp so that they can help us to keep it in tip-top shape. I thought I'd just share a couple of the comments that we've had over the past few months from some of our guests. Everybody seems to love the idea that they get the place to themselves. So this is what sets our camp apart from all of the other camps in the southwest region, is that we are the only camp that when you make a booking, that camp is entirely yours for the time that you're staying at the camp. People really love this. They like having the place to themselves, and they like not having to share ablutions and kitchen facilities with other campers. And it also makes for a really secure environment when people have young children, or if they're coming from schools and church groups and they're responsible for other people's children, that they don't have to worry about what's happening when children aren't under the direct supervision of their leaders. They also really comment on the secure fencing. That was a recent addition, and they're very happy that the camp is able to be locked up at night, and that people can't walk into the camp or out of the camp without somebody knowing about it. Some of the things that kids have said: can we please stay one more day? We don't want to go home. This is the best place ever. This is the greenest place in Binningup. So I thought I would just share some of those comments to let you know how the camp's going, and if you have any questions, I'll do my best to answer them.
Thanks, Megan. And yeah, it certainly sounds like a little hidden gem in bidding up. So I'm wondering what the minimum number is of occupants, so we could book it. Yeah, it'd be nice. But no, thanks for that. And it's great to see that the income that you're getting through the bookings is going back into the infrastructure and the camp and enhancing it. So that's a really good outcome. So councillors, have we got any questions for Megan? Councillor Holly?
Through the chair. Is it access, all access, like for disabled and all that sort of thing? Excuse my ignorance, but
yes, it is.
Yeah.
So we have some ramps to a couple of the dorms that are down on the lower part of the block, and we have an accessible toilet and bathroom as well.
Okay.
Just one question.
Yeah, Councillor Junio.
Just one question I have. But before the question, I have visited your camp and I like it. I'm not sure if you remember me.
I do remember.
I do remember.
Yes.
What's the maximum number of people that you can accommodate in a camp?
We have 81 beds, but we have on occasion accommodated a few more people than that. They bring a swag if they can't get allocated a bed, or they might bunk down in the hall. We do have a couple of spare mattresses, but that happens maybe once a year where we have a really large. It's usually when the Baptist youth games are on. That they come, there's a really big delegation from one of the Baptist churches in Perth that usually have more than 80 people. So sometimes we have to squeeze in a few extras when they come down.
Well done. Thank you.
Councillor Capricorn.
Thanks, Madam President. I didn't catch it whether you shared it with us. So what's your average intake annually of people there? How many people do you get through the camp each year, roughly?
So the 22-23 financial year was 1,204 individual people. And this financial year to date has been 1,059.
Well done. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, there's no further questions. Thank you, Megan, for that. All right, do I have Mr. Willem Angus? Yeah, in relation to item 5.3.12, the proposed use not listed telecommunications infrastructure at Wokelup. So, welcome, Willem.
Thank you all for having me. I'm here today as the lead designer of the network. I believe it's set out in front of you or on the screens as well. I represent Swoop in the support of the tower to be located at Wokelup. The program of works that is supported by the state and federal government in the form of funding from them in grants and with Swoop. The aim of the program is to provide fast and reliable internet in areas where it's needed, and NBN have yet to roll out effective solutions. It is also against the aim of the program to co-locate on existing infrastructure within the areas. It is to build additional infrastructure for other companies in the future to potentially co-locate to further improve other infrastructure in the area. Sorry. Further, a reliable interconnection will enable Wi-Fi calling on compatible mobile devices to the residents if they have a connection, a stable connection, and also allowing users to make mobile phone calls and SMSs using the same technology over the internet connection without relying on the cellular network, which we all know in rural areas can be patchy at best. There are 12 separate sites that are being built in the entire footprint of the network, 9 of which are new towers and 3 are masts on existing infrastructure. Of the 9, they consist of either a 30 or 40 metre 30 or 40 metre guide tower like once proposed, and then 3 are smaller masts on either existing building or the water towers that they're being undertaken this week and last week. Wakalat as a site is not independent and is one of the 5 towers in the Shire of Harvey that are needed to meet the objectives of the grant. The site has been chosen for their location, allowing line of sight for the existing network, as well as connections to the neighbouring sites for our backhaul purposes. The terrain has been considered in this choice to maintain line of sight, which is our equipment has to see one another for it to work. It's not like mobile phone where you can be behind obstacles and things like that without it working. The process of selecting the site has not been done randomly and it was considered with those obstacles of terrain and trees and so forth in mind, as well as ACMA licensing requirements and ACMA licensing availability. That's the main that I had to cover. I'm happy to take any questions that any councillors may have regarding the site or the network in general.
Yeah, thank you, Will. And councillors, are there any questions in regards to this? Councillor Bromham.
Yeah, you mentioned the NBN.
Yes.
And its particular rollout is being rolled out in national as we speak. What's the projected life of these towers given their rollout? Do you know that?
We are under the funding of the state and federal government. I believe it's 7 years we have to maintain the network as it currently stands. But I can fairly comfortably say as long as there is customers on that on those sites, they will maintain operational.
Okay, and were you originally proposing it on farmland? Have you ever considered the Kevin industrial area?
Yes, that has been considered, but it was denied as from Swoop, being that we have limitations on the tower structures themselves of the antenna sizes that we can use for the backhaul requirements. And Carrington, I believe it's Carrington Business Park, was too far to the west and it extended the links beyond what their capability is for maintaining a suitable amount of uptime on those links.
Yeah, I'm through the chair. One more question for you. I just wondered, your system, would that be able to support emergency services in any way?
Quite possibly. So our system is based similar to what the NBN fixed wireless network is, where we come in and install a radio on a property's roof. But unlike the NBN, that radio has to see the radio on our tower because it's purely line of sight. So the 2 radios have to see each other. We are able to install on certain facilities and provide a service over that. We are completely separate to Telstra, Optus, Vodafone assets in this network. The only point of connection where we have one of those assets is based in Bunbury itself, which is our main backhaul into the network.
All right, thank you.
Councillor Capagrugo.
Thanks. Thank you, Madam President. Just a question on, I'm just looking at the drawing showing all the existing, are they all existing towers?
No, they're all currently under planning.
Okay. So, for my little understanding of the towers, there seems to be a big cluster of towers up in the northern area of the drawing.
Yes.
And then between Caraba, Elgin, etc., you've got them strung out along the coastline, well, inland up the coastline. But why have you got such a large amount of towers in one area?
It came down to the funding, so it was broken down into 2 separate lots of funding per the regions. So there was more funded from the state and federal government. My understanding was into the Harvey region rather than the Bustleton itself. And so that's why that focus is being put into that area.
So, if I just have a follow-up. So, is there a need to have all of those towers, given that, you know, between Bunbury and, say, Binning Up and Cooking Up, they're all line of sight, but there seems to be we've got a lot of towers in one area. What's the advantage of that?
The advantage of having more towers is increasing the likelihood of being able to provide the service. There is a maximum range of our equipment at 10 kilometres. So there is, that area does extend beyond 10 kilometres for it. That is a limit that we have set to provide a reliable service to the end user. There is so with the additional towers, we know that the areas that we're trying to target are very heavily, is very flat and very tree around the houses and properties. So a certain angle may be blocked to one tower, but we could go and spin it 60 degrees, 100 degrees, whatever, into a different direction, be able to hit another. So the more sites, the higher chance that we have to be able to provide a service to the customers in the area.
Okay, no worries, thanks for that.
Councillor Bromwell?
Yeah, just quickly, I just wondered, given the number of towers, what was your projected customer uptake?
I don't have that number available to me, I'm sorry. I am mainly the designer side of, and the projected uptake comes from our sales and marketing team.
Okay, thanks. And I just wondered, when you're talking about the number of towers in relation to the number of customers, is that due to the fact of your bandwidth and the fact that the way messages are sent and received, therefore you can have that, when messages aren't received properly, they have to send an ACK or an ACK pack? And
yes.
I can't remember what they call that.
The packets. So yeah, so if a packet's interrupted, yes, it will have to be retransmitted to get it, and then that will give a perceived effect to the end user's connection, that it's a dropout, or if it's a bad connection or slow, things along that nature. So, but that's why we need to maintain line of sight to maintain that solid connection for the customers.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Mr Angus, for that. Thank you. You take a seat. May I invite Mr Wayne Stammers up in regards to item 5.3.12, the proposed use not listed of telecommunications infrastructure at Waikato. Welcome, Mr Stammers.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thanks for giving us the opportunity to make this presentation about the overlay communications tower proposed near my farm in Waikato. At the Shire meeting at Harvey on the 22nd of November, we rejected the proposal to build a 30-metre tower on my neighbour's farm, and then passed a motion that asked for further engagement with the adjoining landowners. I assume that meant try to find a mutually acceptable, better location. To that end, I got cracking trying to just do that. I thought with a bit of cooperation between Swoop, the tower company, and the Shire planners, we may be able to come up with a win-win situation. As it turns out, Swoop didn't want to be part of this new win-win situation. But anyway, I contacted the Shire after a couple of weeks, and the Shire president very kindly offered the help of from her staff. Eventually I began working with Simon Hall. He promised to keep me up to date with any developments and work with us to find out a good solution. He gave me the contact details of the main Swoop officer who was working in Western Australia, locating suitable sites for Swoop towers. I had a face-to-face meeting with him. His name is Noah Raddick. The meeting was at my house in Waikato. He seemed keen to work with me, seemed to get the idea of a win-win situation. My first idea was to try to get the co-location under the Dampier gas pipeline tower that the previous gentleman was talking about, as that the state planning policy first option is to co-locate onto other people's towers. I hear him say that their company has the policy of not co-locating. I don't. That doesn't make sense to me, because to co-locate on that tower, first we're going to build it. You're going to save a lot of money. First of all, you're going to have to build the tower. You don't have to build the tower, and in this case, you won't have to put solar panels on because it's got 240-volt power to it. You don't need batteries backup because you've got 240-volt power, and you don't need a generator, a backup generator, and you don't need to pay rent to the people that own the property, right? Which is probably about $300,000 over the period. So I reckon they can save about probably $1.4 million, I'm just guessing, on co-locating. So why wouldn't they want to do that? That's a question. Just because it's not their policy, who cares? I mean, why would they want to build a tower for other people to co-locate onto them when they can co-locate? I don't see that's a valid point. Anyway, I contacted so I contacted Mr. Neil Perry, who's the Dampier to Bunbury Gas Pipeline Head of Land Management, right? Surprisingly, he said that Swoop hadn't asked or approached them to co-locate on their tower. And he said the Dampier to Bunbury Gas Pipeline people were willing to accommodate Swoop onto their tower. And when I spoke to Noah, the chap Noah, which is the Swoop man, he seemed pretty pleased about that because he said it's a pretty big tower. I looked at it before and wondered how he can get onto it. And it would suit them. They'll be able to they would do the job nicely for that. So he thought this is the state man that does the job that I was put onto. So I told him the good news about it, and he thanked me and said he would start the ball rolling. Right? I was pleased with that because, like I said before, they didn't need to build the tower, didn't need the solar panels, didn't need a gen set. They have to pay about $300,000, I'm guessing, in rent to the landowner over the period, and so it'll be a very economical thing. And also, we wouldn't have another sinking tower because we've already got one right there. We use it like we're supposed to, according to the state planning policy. Anyway, then I thought, oh, maybe they might like that idea. So, as a backup, I'll just see what's happening with the Kemerton industrial area as a potential place to stand in case they want a standalone tower, right? So do a backup one for them. And I discovered in the Kemerton industrial area listed the preferred uses. One of the preferred uses was for communication towers. Beauty, right? They're happy that they want communication towers there because the land's underutilised. They want to get something happening with it. Also, this tower, according to the Swoop person, this tower is to service the industrial area, right? It's right alongside it, not on it. It's built on farming country, right? So why would you build a tower on farming country to service a industrial area? Doesn't make sense to me, right? But it should be on the. I mean, it just doesn't make sense at all. It's farming area, right? Not an industrial area. Anyway, I looked at the maps and found a perfect spot, very close to us, in a cleared area with a Richmond Road frontage, right across the road from the Kemerton power station. You should have a photo over there in front of you.
Yeah, we've got a
Have a
photo.
look. It's
Okay.
great. It's a really good spot. It's not very. We can see the power station from where we are, from the other one. It's only short distance away. It's got to be fine for the. The previous gentleman said it won't work to go into the whatever he called it, but it's Kemerton industrial area. It won't work, but I can't. I'd like some proof of that. I don't think that's true. I mean, why wouldn't it work? Just right alongside us. Why wouldn't it work? I mean, sometimes I wonder what these people are telling us. Anyway, And so it's a good spot, right across the road from the power station, it's clear site. Then I contacted the Kimberley Industrial Area Development Officer, which is Gabriella Luriski, right? And she agreed that the communication towers were one of the principal objectives, especially when I told her that the Kimberley Industrial Area would be one of the main customer bases, because they need the communications as well. She was happy to organise a meeting to get the ball rolling, and in fact she suggested a meeting that very same week. That's how keen she was to get on with it, either face to face or by special phone hookup. I happily let Noah know about it, and he thanked me and said they would get moving on that one as well, right? He didn't say it couldn't happen, he didn't say it wouldn't work, and he's the man that does this other stuff. So there was never any talk about the site not working for them. I never met this gentleman here. I don't know where he came from, because I was talking to this other chap, was supposed to be the big chief. I wonder why Swoop didn't first explore the two obvious options prior to searching on farmland farms. I'm only guessing that farmlands are much easier pickings, right? Probably maybe a few less hoops to jump through, all that sort of stuff. I'm not sure why, but there's nothing, because both those sites I've found are both perfectly good for them and quite close. Anyway, I see there's a petition to support better NBN in our area, right? Petition by all my neighbours, I know them all, and I think if you ask them, do they want a tower next to the house, they'd say no thanks very much, right? But naturally everyone wants good NBN, so do I, right? We want good NBN as well. This is not an issue about whether you have NBN or whether you don't have NBN. This issue is about where you locate these towers, right? And should they be on farming areas when you've got towers already there alongside and industrial area alongside? Should they be on farms or not? That's for you gentlemen to try and figure out. I suppose I'm just not happy about having on the farms, but because I love the Harvey area and all these towers everywhere. Less towers are better. And put them in the industrial area or put them on, if you can, right? If you can't, if you couldn't, I'd just say, well, fair enough, put it there, right? There's no options, no better options. But in this case, there's two better options, and I haven't even started trying yet. I said, look, I told him, I said, if those two options aren't right, let me know, and I'll try and find some better ones, more better ones for it. Even on our farm, I can probably find some hidden spot. We've got 2,000 acres there. That you hide it away, not put it in everyone's face like that bloody thing is there. So, why don't we use those two sites? Why don't you make them use those two sites and still supply everyone with NBN? I'm not saying don't do that. I think the council should make the tower companies toe the line and follow the estate planning policy guidelines. Otherwise, just throw the policy out the window, and we'll have towers willy-nilly all over our beautiful district. In this case, it's a test case. It all boils down to whether you want to make these telecom towers operators give proper consideration to the impact that their towers have on people's lives, or just let them do whatever they want, regardless of the consequences. That's the decision that you guys have got to make, and it's up to you. But I'll live with it. But obviously.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Stammers.
Thank you.
Before you go, councillors, are there any questions for Mr. Stammers? No? Thank you, Mr. Stammers. Alrighty, have I got Mr. Robertson Cooper? Thank you, Mr. Cooper, in relation to the same item.
Is it possible to give an image, but I will just have one image on this stick. Sorry about that. Thank you very much. Only one image. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Robbie Cooper. My wife and I are the owners and full-time residents at 546 Mitchell Road in Wokela. The property on which we're talking about, the application to construct a telecom tower for Swoop Telecom. We purchased our property about 7 years ago after returning to Australia from some years owning and operating a successful pedigree Limousin cattle stud close to the breed selection centre at Station Lanneau near Limoges in France. We returned to Australia for family reasons and decided to settle once again in Harvey, around the area, having previously been very happy in our previous farm in Benja. On contacting Telstra when we moved in to arrange telephone and internet service, we were told that a copper fixed wire installation could be reconnected, but they could only guarantee maintenance of service for 6 months. This did not present a viable option for us. We then made attempts to connect using the NBN. Over the course of some weeks, we contacted a number of suppliers, all of whom assured us that a service would be available. On 3 separate occasions, technicians visited our property, spent some time on our roof, trying to access a viable signal. All attempts failed. There is an image on the screen there. That's my mobile phone from a few days ago. As you can see, there's no signal. That happens on a fairly regular basis. We came to the conclusion that our best option for phone and internet connection was to rely on mobile phone providers, and after testing both, opted for one of the major national suppliers. Our coverage at home on both major networks is very similar. It varies from occasionally adequate to often poor, and on a fairly regular basis, as can be seen there, we receive no signal at all for various lengths of time. I'm not a telecoms technician, but our service often varies, seemingly dependent on the time of day, and we are told that this is likely due to network load. The provider has told us on a number of occasions that there have been upgrade work in the area, but this has not improved the situation to us whatsoever. Whilst this is inconvenient for leisure and personal use, and very impractical and annoying for business activities, a major concern is with safety. The effect on the individual is of course proportional to the amount of time spent in residence. A part-time resident who lives in other areas, as well as locally, will be far less affected in their daily lives than a full-time resident. We have, over the years, all come to rely on phone and internet connectivity for our daily lives, and I would like to give you some examples, if I may, of how this has affected us personally. On one occasion, the owners of a neighbouring property, 574 Mitchell Road, called my wife's phone to say that they were at their home in Mandurah, but there was a paddock fire on their property next door to us, and that they would be making their way to Harvey. We, of course, immediately went to help our neighbours as much as we could. Bush Fire Brigade were on site, and the fire was extinguished by them and air support. What a great service, and very much appreciated for keeping us all safe. On the 27th of February this year, my wife and I spotted smoke and heard helicopters working to the west of us. I attempted to access the DFES Alerts emergency warning website at home, but could not, as there was no phone or internet service. We had to get into a vehicle and drive to find signal to assess information on the state of the fire. Whilst doing this in an area closer to Brunswick with signal, we received a phone call from the Shire President regarding the procedure for making this deputation to you. On another occasion, I had necessity to call an ambulance on 000 for my wife. We had phone signal, albeit poor, and Harvey ambulance arrived shortly after, attending my wife, taking her to hospital. I'd like to say that Harvey ambulance service was excellent and very reassuring. What a great service and very much appreciated. On a more recent occasion, we had to try and call 000 for an ambulance. Unfortunately, this time there was no phone service available, and we therefore could not contact emergency services. There was no internet service either. I had to get my wife, who by this time was very ill and barely conscious, into a vehicle, take her to Harvey Hospital. If we had not had a wheelchair from a previous health issue, this would not have been possible, and the outcome may have been very different. Again, I would like to praise and thank Harvey's local services. The A&E at Harvey was excellent, and treatment accessed very, very quickly. I hope that these personal examples emphasise the importance of telecommunications that we have all come to rely on, and the potential consequences of when they are unreliable or fail, for not only comfort and leisure, but for our personal safety in this day and age. The telecom mast that is proposed is not a mobile phone, as has been discussed, it's not a mobile phone facility in itself. But we are assured will provide the opportunity for reliable internet connection independent of current suppliers, and also as such allow access to Wi-Fi calling, which will allow us to call 000 should the need arise. I'm not a telecommunications technician, as I previously stated. I am told that Wi-Fi calling enables your mobile phone to make calls and send texts over a Wi-Fi network. It works by using your internet connection to connect calls and messages, providing reliable calls and messaging. This feature automatically switches between Wi-Fi and cellular networks, ensuring continuous communications. It's apparently a simple and effective way to stay connected, especially beneficial for areas considering new internet services to improve connectivity. When Swoop approached us, there was of course a lot to consider. We, like everybody else, accept that these telecom masts aren't pretty. It has to be, we are told, be tall to provide line of sight, but we felt that this was offset by the fact that it is not a solid structure, like the one outside, but rather a lattice that is small in section. I believe it's about 560 millimetres across the face. Of course, that lattice is made up of smaller pieces of steel, so you can see straight through the thing. We have driven past other mast sites and considered the visual impact of similar constructions. The area taken up from our farming land after construction is small, at less than 200 square metres. This is far less than 0.1% of our farmland and smaller than the area of a decent farm shed. It will not interfere with ours or any of our neighbours' farming operations. It will be simple to avoid the fully fenced enclosures in vehicle or tractor movements. And even if the neighbour's centre pivot were to be returned to operation, and even if it were to cover a portion of our farm, its closest point of approach to the structure would be more than 250 metres distant. We will receive a payment from Swoop for the access, but this is not financially significant. It's certainly not in the range of where the previous speaker was juxtaposing. After tax, it actually comes to less than our entire Harvey Rates Shire bill for the Harvey Rates Shire. We will, beg your pardon, it's not financially significant, and we feel that the opportunity for ourselves, neighbours and local businesses to have a decent, reliable internet service outbalances any inconvenience to us. We have a strong and deep regard for the environment and wildlife, and we were registered organic farmers in France. We could find no report that suggested adverse effects to fauna, resident or migratory bird life, or adverse effects from this level of electromagnetic emissions. I actually believe the electromagnetic, as I say, I'm not a technician. From my reading of the charts that Swoop has supplied to us, the antennas actually have a lower emissions than an iPhone 12. Not that I have iPhones, but I believe that some countries in Europe have talked about banning them. There we go. We have, it is also very important to us that there was minimal disturbance to trees. In the future, should the technology become obsolete or the contract be ended, we were pleased to confirm that the contract includes that the equipment is removed in its entirety and the site is restored so that no disused equipment is left on farmland. We have also discussed the level of internet service in the area with many people locally. In the majority, these are full-time residents, many of them business owners, who supported the opportunity to access a reliable and independent internet service, as has been documented in the letter to Shire signed by 26 local residents from 19 local addresses. Thank you for the opportunity to speak today. I'll try and answer any questions you may have for me personally.
Thank you, Mr. Cooper. Are there any questions, councillors? No. Thank you, Mr. Cooper.
Thank you for the opportunity and your time.
Thank you. Ms Ann Stemmers, please, in relation to item 5.3.12.
Yes.
Welcome, Ann.
Thank you very much, everyone, for having me. Okay, I just want to bring your attention to just a few things on your agenda notes. This page 100 has the discussion page, and it refers to the State Planning Policy 5.2, and Clause 5.1 discusses the impacts of telecommunications infrastructure. And the notes say that the planning authority may exercise discretion in addressing the visual impacts of telecommunications infrastructure. And then it sets out a few of the things that they can assess. But when I have a copy of the state planning policy, and when you look at 5.1.1, they actually don't put all of the clauses in. And the final clause in 511 is that telecommunications infrastructure should be co-located wherever possible. Overhead lines and towers should be co-located with existing infrastructure and or within existing infrastructure corridors and or mounted on existing or proposed buildings. So this doesn't appear in the notes that we've been given. So I would suggest that perhaps you all get yourself a copy of this State Planning 5.2 and then you might read the whole story. So, and I just sort of wonder why that Swoop, we've obviously known that these are the guidelines and why they wouldn't, in the very first place, try and get their tower onto a local tower when we look across from the tower on Cooper's Place and you can see the existing Dampier Bunbury tower and you can also see the power station. So the other thing that I wanted to bring up was the thing with these guidelines that are a little bit vague and it probably gives your planning people a bit of a job trying to figure it all out. And so I managed to find on the internet a copy of the City of Rockingham's telecommunications infrastructure. Now this state planning policy came out in September 2015 and this City of Rockingham is September 2017, 2 years later, and is just an amendment to their existing infrastructure policy. And it really, between the lines, it seems to me that they've probably had a fair few problems in trying to work out where these towers should go. So they've come up with their own policy. And the first thing they come across, they talk about is location. It's a very simple answer they have here, location. The preferred location for telecommunications infrastructure that cannot be classified as low-impact facilities is in 1, industrial zone, 2, commercial zone, 3, rural zone. They obviously feel that that is the idea coming through the state guidelines. The second thing is they have quite a large section on co-location of facilities. They want new mobile telecommunication towers to include, to permit at least 3 other carriers to co-locate. And they also want the towers to be co-located with existing infrastructure or within existing infrastructure corridors, the same as in the state planning document. But this is the good one. It says, where there is an existing facility in the locality and the carrier chooses not to co-locate onto that facility, the applicant will be required to demonstrate by means of certification from an appropriately qualified person that the proposal cannot be co-located onto that facility for technical or structural reasons. Now in your notes on page 100 and back to page 100, we have a little bit about the Swoop saying that they did actually, after my husband brought it to their attention, they did actually consider going onto the gas pipeline tower. And they don't say it was from a technical reason or a structural reason that they have rejected the option. They just said it's the length of time working with the Dampier Bunbury people. There are some design implications and ongoing costs for their operating expenses. But I think, well, if they didn't try and get this gas pipeline, if they didn't try and get their tower onto the gas pipeline tower in the first place, they wouldn't have this big time problem because they would have probably started looking at it about a year ago or so. And I mean, the operating costs, well, it's just part of it. I mean, they don't say it's a technical reason or a structural reason. So I know this is the City of Rockingham, but I think that they have obviously had some problems, the same problems we're having here. They've come and they've sort of made a set of guidelines which are a lot easier for their planning department to actually understand. And I really think that we need something like this, and we shouldn't accept that these towers can just go on perfectly good farmland when just over here is a huge 7,000 hectare industrial area. I did get a document from the EPA, just a general one on the Kemerton industrial area, just to give a bit of an idea of how big it is. This is October 22. It is the actual industry core is 2,024 hectares. The buffer zone is 5,200 hectares. So that gives them 7,000 hectares to find a spot to put their tower. And the current land uses in the industrial area, not just in heavy industry and so on, but they also say that they have the potential for the following activities, which includes infrastructure and telecommunications. So, you know, it's right there. It's right next to us, and it doesn't have to go on perfectly good farmland and ruin everyone's outlook and also devalue their properties. And so that is my final say. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Stammers. Councillors, are there any questions for Mrs. Stammers? No, thank you, Mrs. Stammers, for that. Alrighty, being no more deputations, we will move into the officers' reports now. So, councillors, I'll go to 5.1.1, which is the insurance for Brunswick River Cottages Incorporated. There was a question by Councillor Dickinson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I was just wondering what the status was of the self-supporting loan that the Brunswick River Cottages had out, please.
Thank you, Madam President. So the existing self-supporting loan that the Brunswick River Cottages has, which is the $750,000, is up to date with their repayments. They have, through the course of making repayments, made an additional payment to put them in front, but there has been no notification made to staff that they are looking at paying that out earlier. And the current balance is, I think, around about $640,000, 20-year loan.
Any other questions, councillors? Okay, 5.1.2, lease for the Bidding Up Beach Christian Youth Camp. Councillor Dickinson.
Thank you. On the image that was provided to us of the map, it shows that the footprint of the youth camp goes into the sandhills, and I was just wondering whether there would be the possibility in the future for development to take place on that sandhill footprint. Thank you.
Through you, Madam Chair, given the environmental sort of constraints of that area, it's coastal sand dune, 4G, and it'd be unlikely that they would get any permission to actually develop that further.
Any other questions, councillors? Thank you. 5.1.3, the local government reforms, standardised meeting procedures. Are there any questions, councillors? All good? All happy? Off the hook there, Freya. There you go. Well done. Your report is ready to go. Alrighty, we will move on to 5.1.4, which is the annual electors meeting notice of motions. Councillors, I'll just go to the first one, which is, I think, I'm just putting up the report now, is to do with the playground. Were there any questions in regards to the notice of motion in regards to the accessible playground? Councillor Coleman.
Thanks, Madam President. I note that the costings for increasing the toilet facilities, etc., and having been down to that area and had a look, is there any reason why we wouldn't provide a more secure roller door for the swim club and a gated access to stop people going into the pool and use the existing disability unisex toilet there to negate the need to spend an extra $200,000 on a toilet facility to start with.
Yeah, look, certainly, through the chair, look, this is just a proposal at the moment to say that we are supporting, progressing the facility, and obviously there is an existing toilet facility in the, as you mentioned, and there may be scope to do what you're saying, but so we'll probably just need to investigate all these things. And if it is possible, then we'll look at that, but if not, then. But I still think there may have to be some sort of more permanent solution there. But it's all to be investigated.
Okay. Follow up, Councillor Coleman?
Yeah, just to follow up. I'm just wondering what the reasoning was to relocate the car park. It just seems to me if it's already there, it could either be extended, but to relocate it just seems expensive.
Look, that's just my proposal. Given that we've got an existing skate park, I thought it'd be good to have a play area adjacent to the skate park with grassland, barbecue, seating and whatnot, so that there'd be some synergies between the two play areas. The car park itself is pretty average. We have to upgrade it anyway. We could use the existing base that's there to build a new car park. So look, this is just a proposal. This is not set in stone or anything. It's just some ideas on a plan. Obviously, there's already been a bit of angst from some people in Hinge Road about the playground, the skate park located where it is. So obviously, there will need to be some consultation and whatnot. We'll have to just follow the process. But that was just a suggestion that was discussed with the people that proposed the playground, because obviously you can't build it on Merida Park itself due to the soccer there at the moment. But if the soccer wasn't there, then the logical thing would be building it to the north of the skate park. So it's just trying to get that little precinct happening so that there's joint facilities and amenity and just some sort of cohesion there.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions, councillors? Councillor Holly?
May I have excuse, please?
Councillor Holly. I just have one question, just confirming the difference between an accessible playground and a playground that has, similar to Ridley Place, that has activities there for those that may need it, disabled activities or the like, a combination of both. So my understanding is this one, they've asked just for an accessible playground, so is there a difference in costs with that?
Yes, there'll definitely be a different cost. Ridley Place has got accessible elements, but it's not a fully accessible playground. What has been requested is an accessible playground. Going back to the residents that put this forward, they're actually liaising with Adam Johnson from our, and he, between them, they're going to we've given them a list of what we think should be and shouldn't be and all that sort of stuff. They're going to come back to us with what their preference is, and then I suppose through the process we determine whether it's a fully accessible or there's accessible elements, and then obviously cost is going to be a major factor. Because to make it fully accessible is quite an expensive exercise, but if we can look at some key accessible elements, that may be a bit of a compromise. So I think we've got a bit of a long way to go in terms of coming up with the ultimate solution in liaison with the community.
Are there any more questions around the playground? Okay, the cyclist shoulder on Old Coast Road was the other notice of motion that came up from the electors meeting. Is there any questions around that one? Okay, and Councillor Dickinson, you had a question that you put forward?
I did, but because it's mainly a proposal, it was just, are the trees going to be maintained, which I always bring that question up whenever there's anything like this. Thank you.
Yeah, and look, based on your question, I did a very quick sketch before the meeting, just to look at how you can work around existing trees, and the play area there shown in pink is pretty well the same size as the Ridley Place play area. And if the car park was to be shifted, you could incorporate a new car park around the trees, and keeping the trees where the playground is there probably works quite well in terms of shade and whatnot. So yeah, we wouldn't take any trees out.
Thanks.
Different wind there. Yeah.
Mr. Locksnicker, I've seen consultants that have received lots of money that have similar drawings to that, so I'm very impressed with yours. Well done. So, councillors, any other questions for this item? Thank you. 5.2 infrastructure services, Neil. 5.3 sustainable development. Councillors, I'm going to just go to item 5.3.1 through to 5.3.10 as they all relate to the use not listed specialist disability accommodation. So unless you have a question to a specific address, let me know. Otherwise, I'll take it as general questions for all of these items. So councillors, do I have any questions? Councillor Capra-Grego.
Yeah, thank you, Madam President. I have a few concerns, and one of the things that I'd like a question asked. So, with these disability homes, have we considered, and what is the amount of parking that is allowed on each one of these properties? And the reason for the question is that I've actually spoken to someone who lives next door to one of these properties, and at any given time there's 6 vehicles in front of this home, and many times they have to kick them off their verge because they've just parked on their verge as well. And my concern is that, we've got so many in one area that the amount of vehicles parked in front of these homes, especially if they've got more than one resident, they've got more than one carer, and it just escalates from there.
So the question's around parking.
Around parking, yeah.
Through you, Madam Chair. Councillor Capra-Grego, I'm not aware of the premises you're sort of referring to, but I know that it's through some of the discussions that we've had with these providers and the designers is that they believe they've accommodated them, and it's more of a management sort of style of it's a management issue in terms of when services come and go at any one particular time. And we're entering into an era now where there is a lot more coordination, a lot more management from specialised professional companies that are doing this level of care. So in our discussions with them, they believe that they don't need to provide any additional or excessive car parking because it's more of a management tool. I'm hoping they've got that right. We're not in a very strong statutory position to actually demand for a higher level of parking because they've provided what is minimally required under the R codes. It's something that we can have a chat to them further about. Happy to have a chat with them again between now and next week and provide some further response, but they're of the opinion that the management of the carers and the services coming and going shouldn't provide any additional sort of impact on traffic movements through that area. So, and I do acknowledge that a concentration of sort of 10 of these in one area, that management expectation from them might be undermined by the fact that they're all close together, but individually they've said they don't believe that any additional parking is required to be provided.
Follow up? Yeah, also I've read through some of the objections and I think that people that are unfortunate to be in a disability, they need to be housed and they need to be living as long as, like the same as everyone else. But I am really concerned about 10 of these buildings all in one subdivision thus I asked the question, which I understand we can't provide, is I'd like to see how they are scattered throughout the Shire, like in the Australind, Treendale, Harvey areas, you know, because we are putting a large amount of disability homes, or the developer's putting a large amount of disability homes in one location. It is, I think, if I was a landowner in that area, I'd be seriously concerned for lots of different reasons. And
I just remind you that we're questioning.
yeah, I know. So the question I got is, you know, when this has come through to council, right? What scrutiny do we do? What scrutiny does council do to make sure that going forward, that it doesn't become an issue?
Through you, Madam Chair. Councillor, your concerns about that concentration was something that we raised with them immediately. You know, we were concerned and asked why it was the case. The availability of land, the demand, the requirement was their response, and there is nothing that this local authority or any other local authority can do to preclude someone purchasing a property for a particular use. We're fortunate in this particular case that we have actually triggered the need for a DA and actually go through the process and can condition individually and appropriately. Collectively, it's very difficult to say we need a condition that stops an outcome based on the cumulative impact. We're not in a position to do that. The only thing we can do is actually monitor it through, if we do get complaints from neighbours, whether it's noise, whether it's traffic, and use our environmental health department or our rangers. Hoping it's not going to come to that, but yeah, we've definitely had some very similar concerns with regard to the concentration.
No further questions, thank you.
Any other questions? Councillor Junio.
I work in residential care for youth, so I'm familiar with that kind of situation. And in the companies that I work in, housing for either youth care or disability is quite spread out. It could be because of just difficulty finding accommodation, but also just, I assume, is for community safety, or possibly just to manage it probably better. My question is for this is, has there been ever a precedent where houses like this are trying to get in a particular location somewhere in Perth or here in Southwest for this kind of accommodation?
Through you, Chair, I'm not aware of anything in this particular style of design. These STA units are something that is becoming the norm. There may very well be, like there are, we know areas within Harvey, we know areas within adjoining local authorities where there are streets that are owned by estate housing that have a variety of tenants, that have a variety of different needs and capacities. They're not coming through to us for approvals because they're single houses on single blocks, and the government agencies that manage those choose to put tenants in them. So there may be examples throughout the entire state where there are streets or suburbs that have a higher concentration of homes for people with accessibility issues or other issues. This is the first time we've experienced it, and it's the first time that these types of houses have come to our radar and needing approvals. So look, I don't have any specific examples, but do know that there are large areas and suburbs that are dominated by state housing.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So what you're really saying is there's no way we could say in our capacity to reject anything as long as they follow all the prerequisites for something such as this.
It would be very difficult for us to issue a refusal. A one-off application that we think has significant detrimental impacts from just that one house, we could do something on an individual basis. But collectively to say that 10 of them are all going to cause this particular outcome, I couldn't defend that one in any sort of appeal process.
Councillor Coleman.
Thanks, Madam President. I do have experience in Perth with some of these sorts of style accommodation, and I'm just wondering if we have the ability, and in my experience, the areas and clusters like this have a lower speed limit, which is actually safer for all people in the area. And they have had parking. The issues about parking often stems from external services, whether that be people like Silver Chain or cleaners or whatever, not necessarily the people, the actual carers of the people with a disability. So my question through the chair to staff would be, can we look at lower speed limits? I know it's not our jurisdiction, Mr. Lotsnicker, but can we look at a lower speed limit in those sorts of areas? And can we investigate and ensure that there is, if you like, visitor parking that is for external services that actually negates people parking or trespassing on neighbours' properties? Are they some of the options that we can look at that would make it more palatable for people?
Look, lower speed limit, through the chair, the posted speed limit in residential streets is 50 kilometres per hour statewide. Main roads would approve one street with a lower speed limit in isolation. I know the metro area, they're looking area-wide, 40 kilometres per hour, but it's not street by street, it's area-wide. The only way you can get speeds down is to actually do some physical intervention to lower the speeds, which, you know, you're sort of a little bit reluctant to do unless there's a demonstrated speed issue. So yes, lowering the speed wouldn't be an option.
Okay.
Through Madam Chair, we go to the second part of that question. Each of the dwellings actually have a double garage, and they have capacity to park in the driveway as well. Some of the discussions we've had with them is it's rare that the actual tenants have vehicles. So the carers' vehicles and stuff are generally in the garage, and with the capacity for 2, potentially 3 bays to be available for carers to service providers to come and go. I'm hoping that will be sufficient. But if it is an issue, there's a number of different options that we can have in terms of no standing, no parking and so on verges and all sorts of things. So we will just need to monitor it and hopefully not have an issue that is being discussed.
Okay.
Councillor Bronwyn?
Madam President, I'm aware that the state housing policy is to have their houses separated so there's only so many houses per square kilometre or whatever. So I'm wondering why we would have such a large amount of these houses clustered together and whether it meets the state's understanding of how these things should actually eventuate into the future.
No, through you, Madam Chair, I probably couldn't comment on how the state considers this to address other sort of policies that they have, and there used to be state policies of 10%. They have their own internal policies in terms of spatial layouts. How this complies with that, I couldn't tell you, Councillor. Sorry.
So, if I may, I suppose my concern is from looking at from the people who are going to be residing in these locations. I notice it's near the highway, possibly noisy. You might have people living in these houses which may be affected by that, or there's lack of public transport in the area for them when we're talking about livable neighbourhoods, and the construction of curbing and other paths may be affected. I'm just wondering if we're going to start crowding people in to areas like that, how do we address all those issues to ensure that the people who will be living in these locations will actually well catered for from a health perspective?
Through you, Madam Chair, most of the estates within Kingston and Treendale have all been designed to allow for pedestrian movements, vehicle movements throughout on a permeable and low speed sort of environment. So I think the ability to move, you mentioned curbing and a few other things, I don't consider that the standard urban services or design outcomes are actually going to need to be modified to allow for people with accessibility issues to move throughout the estate. We know that public transport is not the best within the southwest or even in Church. So that is something that going forward there may be a further discussion with the public transport providers. But at this stage we have been advised by these, and they're not state run, so in terms of applying state policies, they're actually privately owned and privately managed. So to suggest the need to comply with state policies in terms of the provisions of this sort of accommodation is probably something we shouldn't really be going down. But I don't believe that the tenants within these facilities will be getting located in areas that they just aren't suited towards. So we can only rely on the advice that we've got from these providers to say that these are purposely built for a whole range of different clientele, and we just hopefully that their selection process that they have to go through is robust. So, and it's the good thing is that there is a high level of control and a high level of design than if you do have a state housing or a standard accommodation where anyone can actually just reside in a house that's not purposely built for these people. So I think there's a much higher level of protection and amenity than you're going to get anywhere else at the moment.
Yeah, I've got just one question, and you touched on it there, Mr. Hall, that they are privately owned facilities, buildings. So what recourse do we have should we start getting complaints from the community? Do we just direct those complaints straight back to the NDIS company, or would we be expected to resolve those?
It depends on the nature of the complaint, Madam Chair, because of the fact that there is a development approval that's been issued. If they are non-compliant with that development approval, then we as a local authority would need to implement those conditions. If they are operational, such as noise or traffic, whatever, rangers or someone else, so there may be some role for us to have. I think if we were to flick it to NDIS, they'd probably wipe their hands of it and say, we are just a provider of carer, we are not the tenants, we're not the owner, so deal with them. So.
Okay. All right, councillors, are there any? Oh, Councillor Coleman.
Sorry, just one more. If the owners just built a property that was disability compliant and didn't apply for a specialist disability accommodation, would we still be having this conversation?
One of the questions is how come we've actually got these, and why haven't we been approving these in the past? These are specialised STA designed units that do trigger the need for a development program because of the way that they are designed and tenanted and have live-in carers. You could build a single house that has accessible components throughout. It wouldn't trigger the need for a DA because at a building permit stage, we probably wouldn't pick it up. It's just a single house. So these have been applied for. They've got individual en-suites, kitchenettes, everything in them. So they are a purpose over and above a single residential house. So that is why we get involved and development approvals are required. But we would have so many houses within our shire that are providing accommodation for people that should be going into these, but just fall through the gaps because they're a single house that aren't designed probably appropriately.
Any final questions, councillors? Okay, thank you. We'll move on to item 5.3.11, which is the proposed structure plan at Troondale East. Any questions, councillors? No? Thank you. 5.3.12, which is the proposed use not listed telecommunications infrastructure at Wokelup. Councillors, are there any questions? No? Okay. Councillor Crispin, welcome back.
Sorry.
You have a question?
I do, yeah. It was just in regards to, I was looking at the November council meeting, how we obviously deferred it. Just looking at this one here, I was just trying to see if there's better concept drawings. Like, do we have any latest concept drawings to actually clearly identify where the location was? just got that one picture on, just kind of like zoomed out. Yeah.
Through you, Madam Chair, I gladly acknowledge I was on holiday and defer to our manager for planning as to whether or not these are the only plans that we have. I believe they are the most recent set of plans. They are accurate, and they're the plans that we've been provided.
100%. It says it in there, but it is the north facing up next to the trees. Yeah, so thank you.
Madam Chair, may I just point out probably a very valid point of clarification in terms of the co-location and the comments that was made by the designer on behalf of Swoop. The comment was that it's part of the funding agreement that co-location was not the primary expectation of this particular grant. It was construction of new equipment. So it isn't a policy of Swoop's not to do that. It is actually a requirement of the funding agreement that
They not co-locate.
precluded that from being the preferred option.
I'm pondering on that, hold it.
Because has been discussed previously in the fact that the co-location, but the advice we've received from the applicant on behalf of Swoop is that that funding agreement that they've received was not for co-location, it was for the construction of new infrastructure. And we can clarify that further for next week if you wish, Madam Chair. But I just wanted to make sure, because it has been quite a lengthy part of the discussion, as part of that funding agreement. That's why none of it had really been pursued up until now.
Councillor Caprigo.
I just got a question on that. So, we continually protect farmland as part of the requirements by the state, right? And we have got an adjacent industrial park. Has Shire has staff spoken with Swoop and said, look, try to encourage the industrial park, because that's what the industrial park was for, not on farmland. So, the question I have we had the discussions to say, hey, we've got an industrial park that's a couple of k's away. It's all to do with line of sight. Why are we not going on the industrial park and going onto prime farmland?
No, through Madam Chair, yes, those discussions have been held very, very point blank. One in response to our preferred locations as well, and also in response to neighbours' concerns. And that is again some of the reason why we actually did put Swoop and landowners together to actually investigate those options. For the reasons Swoop has provided today, that is why their preferred option remains as is.
Can I just follow up? I mean, to me, it's a win-win situation. People get their internet, people protect their farm, we get a tower, Swoop wins, everyone wins.
Yep.
And it's located in the correct location.
Sure.
Okay, Councillor Bromham, have you got a question?
Oh, I was just wondering, in relation to the information just provided, do we know if a tower is placed within the Kempton location, that it would operate effectively?
Through you, Madam Chair, those questions have been asked and sort of answered by the designers to date already. It's not up for us to actually, we can't actually be responding on behalf of the designers. They have investigated those options and they keep coming back to this particular location as their preferred design outcome. So.
Just can I clarify this? They haven't said it wouldn't work from the Kempton location.
Through Madam Chair, I'm starting to get into sort of defending the application, but based on the network design with other towers that have been approved and starting to be constructed, this is the optimum site that meets their design requirements.
Councillor Crispin.
Just going back, I think it was a year or so ago, I recall when they sort of came down for presentation. I don't know if we kept the presentation or if that was available still, because that actually did explain everything that you're saying right now. Because I recall where they place them all and the reasons why they place them all and then the funding structure and all that type of stuff. But obviously we don't have, that doesn't really get uploaded to it. So I was wondering if that was still available. That might be a good one for us to read.
And this was responsible for that, yeah.
Through you, Madam Chair, yes, I'm aware of the presentation that was made. I don't know if we have anything on file. I can have a look.
We will have a look.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions in regards to this one, councillors? Okay, thank you. Corporate services, 5.4.1, payments for February 2024. Councillor Dickinson, you've got a few questions there, thank you.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. I see the payment EFT 70168 was to BHRC for organics disposal, Bankshire Road. Is that to pay for any organic material that gets delivered by ratepayers to Richardson Road and then it has to be transferred to Bankshire Road to be processed to become FOGO?
Through the chair, no, it doesn't. We don't transport any organics from Richardson Road to Bankshire Road.
Right. So follow-up question, if I may. So what does the organics disposal Bankshire Road payment cover?
That's for the regular contracted weekly pickup of curbside collection bins.
And then my next question was EFT payment 704982 and 499 to Galati nominees and Treendale nominees. Is that part of the joint town planning scheme? Is that reimbursement to those organisations, or is that something else?
So the first one for Galati nominees, the $8,000, is a planning approval, a condition for a planning approval for Spring Hill Road that has been met. The Treendale nominees is bonded landscaping works that were required that have been completed.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions, councillors? Okay, 5.4.2, financial statements as at the 29th of February. Do we have any questions? No? Okay, we'll go on to beauty and lifestyle. 5.5.1, the sport and rec plan. Councillor Dickinson.
Thank you. I was just wanting clarification, if I may, that any recreation activity not identified in this strategy would still be considered in the Shire's future planning, and staff have answered this, but I thought it probably would be good to have this on the public record for the community. Thank you.
Through you, Madam President, absolutely. It's a flexible document and needs to be a living document, and new opportunities that come along the way should be considered on their merits. It is a document that's sort of a hopeful. We really want to achieve this, but it may not be that they can always make the full capital works plan or indeed the budget. So, you know, absolutely a flexible document.
Did you have another question?
Oh, my other question was just how many sporting organisations were registered to be active in the Shire and were participating in the Sport and Rec Advisory Group.
And Madam Chair, the answer to that was 41 at the stage, but I think that probably varies from time to time.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All righty, councillors, do we have any other questions? Councillor Coleman.
Thanks, Madam President. Given recent discussions and presentations about the cricket wicket, I noticed in the recommendation 2B that there is to be an implementation plan. I'm just wondering how long that implementation plan is likely to take, given that we know we've got football coming up, so nothing's going to be installed over the winter months. but also the apparent pressure of funding. Just wondering if the implementation plan would be ready at the end of the football so that we have some substantial development before the end of the calendar year.
Madam Chair, you're a really good question, because part of the problem is timing. What I was probably looking for tonight with this report was commitment that we agreed to have committed to the cricket pitch. That's what the resolution says. If that's the case, that comes out of this meeting, we'll be going back to cricket and to football to talk about timing. Probably the earliest that cricket could be back into actually do the turf wicket in the middle is next summer. But there are other elements of the grant that we could be starting to look at delivering. But so I know when I spoke to the members from the club, they were saying that you come in summer, not use it, cricket, possibly football could play around it next winter, then the following summer again they wouldn't use it because the pitch would be settling in, and then the third season they would play it, and that's really the earliest that they could do it. They recognise that they actually can only do it during the summer period.
Thank you. So, given that if we were to get the pitch installed prior to, and I'll just say the end of this year because of the conversations that we've had, my understanding is that from, is it Cricket WA that I spoke to? WA Cricket, that whilst the pitch needs to settle in for at least 12 months, it can be played upon by other sports. It just can't be, it's not safe enough to put a cricket ball down safely. So if we were to get that installed, if we were to get that substantially, is there an opportunity for us to get that substantially developed, even though cricket will be displaced, and they understand that? Is there an opportunity for us to get that substantially developed before the end of this calendar year?
Madam Chair, again, that's what the implementation plan will look at. So it's what we're hoping.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. Any other questions, councillors?
Madam Chair,
yes.
If I could just, I just wanted to correct one word that's in the report, which is a pretty important word. It was actually in terms of Harvey in cricket, and it's on the bottom of the page where we're talking about the Harvey recreation, ground drainage and optimisation of playing fields. And unfortunately the word "not" has been left out when we prepared the report. I know we've probably read it 5 times and thought the word was there, but it wasn't. It says the assessment of the needs and feasibility study does support this request. That's actually wrong. It actually should be an assessment of the needs and feasibility does not support this request. That's from Harvey Cricket. We'll get that corrected for the agenda for council, but I just thought I should raise it now because I had the opportunity to. We only picked it up this morning.
All right, councillors, so there will be an opportunity to discuss this a bit further at our Capital Works workshop, that's the word I'm looking for, next week. But there are lots of documents, so I just encourage you, if you have some further questions, that will be a great opportunity to ask them and seek clarification. But this plan has been in the midst for a very long time, so it would be good to get all councillors to get their head wrapped around it all, ask questions. You've got another week to ask questions and see it up and running and ready to go. So I ask you, make sure you're across it all the best you can. Are there any other questions in regards to the plan? No? Okay. All right, notice of motion for the following meeting is one that I've put up. Look at that in regards to the, for this meeting. Oh, because it's, but there we go, I hear an echo. It's for this month, because it's been received in time, so staff have got me organised. So thanks for that, and it's as you read it. We are just checking on one point in regards to the dates in regards to meetings in Australia, but we'll have a look at that during the week and make any changes if need be. So are there any questions in regards to this? Lovely.
I've just got one question.
Yes.
So I support the the motion, but I'm just trying to figure out those dates. If we were going to turn this into a meeting room, office space, the duration would be until we got to the point where we would be doing the development here. Is that correct?
Yes, yeah. So that's why I said we're going to check those dates.
So, I know, but those dates end in September this year. Is there a magic wand that says that we're going to build? Because I want that one.
Through the chair, we only set our meeting dates as with the election cycle, and generally that happens in October, and we do that every October, so every year. So from October, we will have a new report, and it will just say that they're all in Harvey.
Perfect.
All right, councillors, it's been a long meeting. Thank you very much for your participation, and I declare the agenda briefing session closed. Thank you, staff. Thank you.